Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a little different than my normal kind of content as I'm recording this on November 3rd, 2024. I think I'm going to start calling these videos history for normies because that's what I'm going to dive into today. So before I get into all that, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, subscribe, tell your friends, everybody else. And I'll put all my socials down in the comment or in the description down below. Jeez, I need to get better at this. Yeah, so there's the biz up front, I guess. So today, like I said, is going to be more of a historical type video. A little bit about politics, but mostly history. So, in today's America, it is fairly common for people to talk about how the price of groceries is high and utility bills is high and people can't afford things. And also, people will, point to inflation being a problem, which I fully, absolutely think it is. But as everything in life, there are steps that come before it that lead you to where you are now. So, depending on who you ask, the history of our current economic system that we know today can be traced back to Richard Nixon decoupling the dollar from gold. Now, people will criticize this move, but much like a Monday morning quarterback talking about how, the coach of the Bengals or whoever should have done this, that, or the other, in the midst of it, you don't know exactly their thoughts and feelings on the matter. So, why did Richard Nixon do this? Why did he decouple the U.S. dollar from gold? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but we got to get some context for that first. So, like everything else in modern America and the modern world, after World War II, a new international economic system was put in place that was called the Bretton Woods system. There's a lot of intricacies about this system, but in short, it stated that other countries would settle their international monetary balances in U.S. dollars, and the value of the U.S. dollar was fixed to gold, which at the time was $35 per ounce of gold. Anybody that owns gold nowadays is probably thinking, wow, that would be awesome right now. I don't own any gold. The precious metals that I invest in, you can see, on the shelf back behind me there. So, because the US dollar was linked to a set price of gold, this would require the United States to keep the supply of dollars commensurate with that price of gold to ensure economic stability. However, this would prove to be an issue later on down the line. I mean, look at it. We'll just use like a first grade example here. If you have one apple and want to trade that for something else, well, then that other something else better be fairly valuable to you, at least in your head. Whereas if you have 10 apples, well, then you can trade one for this, one for that, kind of spread them around, and therefore the value in your head of apples is less valuable because there is more of that. That is called inflation. And that's what happens when countries print money without thinking about the end result of it. Anyway, as time went on, the United States would send more and more money to other countries for things like foreign aid and military help, because at that point, we were in the Cold War, so everybody was thinking Russia was the big bad guy. Funny how things never change. But this meant at one point there were more dollars in the hands of other countries compared to the United States. So that put the US in a little bit of a weird spot. Um, and since at the time the dollar was linked to gold, well, other countries wanted their share of the gold that we had on hand, which then results in a run on gold. Um, if you're confused on what I'm talking about, if you've ever seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, at one point, the people in the town try to go to the bank to get all their money out, but then, oh man, I'm just blanking on his name and I didn't put it in my notes here. The main character starts to empty out the register of his own store and even the safe in his own store to keep a run happening on the bank in town, which could then have resulted in a bad economic situation there. Well, put that on the national level, when too many people say, hey, we want our stuff, and there's not enough stuff to go around, you got problems on your hands. So, the bank in London actually had an issue like this come up because on October 20th, 1960, a run on gold took place in the London gold markets, which caused the price of gold to jump up to $40 an ounce. So this obviously caused a lot of people to panic, and when panic sets in, people don't make rational decisions. And in response to this, the London Gold Pool was formed a little over a year later on November 1st, 1961. So this gold pool consisted of 8 central banks, mostly from Europe, but of the United States as well. And what they did was they kind of grouped together their gold reserves with the intent of stabilizing the price of gold, trying to keep gold at that $35 per ounce price point. And this worked for some time, but another run on gold occurred several years later, and this gold pool eventually collapsed in March of 1968. So, leading up to Richard Nixon's presidency, there were a couple runs on gold markets, which caused economic problems here and there. And when economic problems happen, inflation occurs, unemployment goes up, things like this. And obviously, when problems happen, the policymakers and politicians try to brainstorm ideas that, in my opinion, largely don't work to try to curb these issues. An economic recession actually occurred between 1969 and 1970, and unemployment reached about 6%, and inflation was recorded by CPI indexes at 5.4%. So this is what Richard Nixon was dealing with, right up to the point of 1971 when Richard Nixon and some of his economic advisors came up with some bold new ideas, at least at the time. So on August 15th, 1971, President Nixon addressed the nation about his new economic plan that was intended to reduce inflation and unemployment, as well as correct the balance of gold payments to other countries. Like I said, a lot of countries had US dollars, wanted their gold. We didn't have enough gold to match those dollars, so something had to change. Nixon's first order was to close the gold window, meaning that foreign countries could no longer exchange their dollars, their US dollars, for gold. Therefore, they had to exchange their currency for US dollars. This was the official decoupling of the US dollar from gold. Nixon's second order was to implement a 90-day freeze on wages and prices in order to check inflation. This was intended to bring down inflation without causing unemployment to rise or cause economic problems that weren't already in place. He also enacted a 10% import surcharge to ensure that American products weren't being screwed over in the markets because of the differences in exchange rates for currencies and stuff. So this plan seemed to work for a short time as inflation was seemingly halted during this 90-day freeze, and economic growth seemed to be on the rise. Not only did Nixon stave off for a short time an economic crisis in the United States, he also resolved a looming international crisis as well. You know how I said that countries had dollars and they wanted to swap those dollars for gold? Well, France was one of those countries. And they had a decent supply of American dollars up to this point, and they wanted their gold. The country of France was severely affected by World War II, thanks Germany, and the United States helped, with the war effort and rebuilding after the war, so France had a bunch of dollars, and they wanted their gold. So starting in the 1960s, French President Charles de Gaulle, or however you say it, ordered the Bank of France to increase payments of gold from the United States to France. I'm sure that, the United States cooperated in every single way they could. And, there was no issues there. Oh, wait. I don't think so. Because at one point, France actually sent a battleship to New York with the intent of bringing home gold from the New York Federal Reserve vaults. Yeah. Bet y'all didn't know about that. France sent a battleship in the 1970s to United States shores demanding gold. So, yeah. Interesting, huh? So, were Nixon's ideas good? Well, in the short term, they seem to do good. However, looking back over the last several decades, the dollar has lost more and more value, resulting in the same issues we have today. People talk about how Taco Bell used to be cheap in the 90s. You could eat like a king on like $10 at Taco Bell in the 90s. Now, I just went to Taco Bell the other night to get my wife and I dinner, and 2 Cantina chicken bowls and 2 Mountain Dew Baja Blast cost $20. So, like I said up top, it's easy to criticize, be an armchair quarterback, but when the end result comes to this, it's hard to say whether those ideas were good or not. So, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Should Nixon have done this, or was that the right thing to do at the time? Who knows? We can't get in a time machine and go back to change the past. We can only keep moving forward. So, I will leave some references for this video that I read down in the description, and social media handles down there as well. Please give the video a like, share, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. Y'all know how the social medias work. And with that being said, I will see y'all next time.